Hey guys, welcome back to another episode on the 71 Cutlass. In the last episode, we got this car back from blast and kind of went over what metalwork needs to happen on this car. And hopefully in this episode, we knock out most of the metalwork. Like I said, I'm still waiting on the trunk pan to come in, but I mean, hopefully it'll be here this week and I'll be able to get that installed. But we're not gonna let that stop us. We are actually going to start with the metalwork on the front floor. So you can see, this is all rotted right here. So we're gonna get ready, get all this cut out, and then get our new floor patch mocked up and welded in place. Okay, so I got that floor piece cut out. You can see I just went right along the tape lines that I made. So now I'm actually gonna go along and I'm gonna cut this, and really it's just best to get the biggest piece out first, and then you can kind of go and finesse the edges. Just makes it a little bit easier on yourself. So I'm gonna get the rest of this trimmed out. Then we're gonna get our floor patch, set it in, go underneath, trace it, trim this, and then get it fit into place and tack it up. Okay, got the floor all the way prepped and ready, and this piece completely trimmed up. Drilled my spot holes, which are gonna go right here, and I'm gonna weld them shut. And then also threw some weld through primer on there, that way they don't rust. So now we're going to get the magnets out, put this in place, and we're gonna start to tack this all the way around. So basically what I'm doing is I am getting this piece tacked into place. Aftermarket panels are never the same as OEM, so you have to massage them. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of tacking it and working my way around, trying to get my gap as even as possible. So you can see right here, the overlap is pretty bad because now I pushed this in. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have to trim this back just a little bit, and then I'll force it down so it's flush, and then keep tacking it all the way around. So I'm gonna get the entire thing tacked all the way up. Okay, I got the floor all the way tacked into place. The only place that I actually had to slit was right here, just because this shape was a little wrong. But that's kind of expected with this being an aftermarket panel. So now that I got all that tacked into place, it really wasn't that bad. I did have to massage it pretty much all the way around to make it fit. But now I am ready to start final welding this into place. So you gotta make sure that you remember to cool as you go. It really doesn't matter so much with this floor piece, because if you warp it, first of all, you're never gonna see it. And second of all, with these curves, it's kind of harder to warp. But I'm just gonna get in the habit and cool my panel as I go. So I'll do probably 3 or 4 tacks, and then I'll cool them to the touch, and then do 3 or 4 tacks and cool them to the touch. That just prevents the heat from soaking into the panel, which causes warpage. So let's get this thing final welded. Okay, got the floor patch welded all the way around. It took me about an hour and a half to do, but it is finally done. So now I'm going to ground on the top of the welds, and then that will pretty much finish up the front floor patch. Okay, the front floor patch is all the way finished up. You can see it turned out pretty nice. I always leave a little bit of weld on the top. First of all, you're never gonna see this. It's gonna be sound edited and carpeted. You're never gonna see it. So you may as well leave as much weld as you can just so that it is structurally strong. So really I grind it down so it's really just about like that. You can still see where I welded, but if we tilt it and you look underneath, you can see that I got plenty of penetration all the way around. So now I'm gonna come along the bottom and I'm gonna clean up some of this, and then actually before we CRE this and coat this with epoxy primer, we are going to run a bead of 8115, which is paddle bond, just so that it is structurally good and this will never crack, and it will also seal the back of it. So I'm gonna dress the welds a little bit on the bottom of the car, and then I think the next thing that we're gonna move to is our firewall.
Okay, so I jumped on the underside and ground down all the welds. One of the things that I didn't really explain on camera is I like to turn off the lights and put a light on the back side of where I welded. That way I can see all the little tiny pinholes. And then I weld them shut in the dark and make sure to check that I got all the holes filled.
Okay, so I finished the floor. I had to go and make sure there weren't any holes. So I filled the holes that I could see and then ground down the welds. So that is all the way finished. So now I'm gonna move to the firewall. This is the patch that we ordered. Pretty cool. We ordered it from a company called LS Fabrication, I think is what they are called. And then I also ordered a firewall for the Blazer and also the hidden taillight fuel door for the Blazer as well from them. So they sell a lot of pretty cool products. So this patch just comes and sits about like this. You can see it covers up all of that. It's gonna look really, really nice. We're gonna have to patch all of that over there, so I'll have to cut that out and put it in a patch. But I'm gonna get this on. We're gonna mark it out and then start to cut out the firewall.
How did we get here?
Okay, so I started to get the firewall cut out. I also got all of the old seams that are removed because we're gonna be doing a little bit nicer job than what they did factory. So you can see I cut out all of this as well, and I'm actually gonna build a patch for this first that'll come to here and cover this, and then it will spot weld to our actual firewall piece that we're going to put in. So I'm gonna get this piece cut and made right now and then tacked in place, and then once that is fully tacked in place, then we're gonna move to this one and start to get it fit up.
So on this smaller firewall patch, I started by getting a piece of cardboard cut out. That way I could get the basic shape and then transfer that to metal. It is way faster to do this than just to try and trace the metal and cut it out to the shape that you're trying to build. Once I got the metal all the way ground down and ready to go into place, it was time to start tacking it, doing the same as what I did when I did the floor, making sure the level was flush as I went around and tacked it, and then once it was all the way tacked into place, it was time to final weld it, doing 4 or 5 welds at a time, cooling it, and then continuing welding it.
Okay, so I got that first piece all the way welded in. I just have to grind out the welds. I did this piece first because you can see it actually slides underneath this firewall patch that we're gonna put in. So once I grind down those welds, then we're gonna be able to start trimming up our firewall patch and then get that tacked in place and then final weld it.
After hours of work, the firewall patch was finally fit up into place. This is probably the thing I love most about building cars, is doing these little subtle changes. This is going to look so good painted. I can't wait to see it.
Okay, so got that piece completely welded in. It actually came out really nice. It actually was pretty easy to weld, and I really didn't have a lot of blow through or holes, so that's good. So now I'm gonna grind down the welds, and then that should pretty much be all the metal work to do on the firewall. So this firewall patch came out so good. I am so happy with it. It's gonna look so good in the engine bay. We're gonna have to do a couple other things so that it will tie everything together, but that it's gonna be a while down the road. So now that the firewall patch is done, so we already did the floor on the inside. Now the firewall patch is done. I'm just gonna work my way frontwards to back. There is a small rough spot right here. So I'm going to get this cut out, and then we're gonna get a patch put in right here. And then I think that will pretty much finish up the entire front of the Cutlass. Okay, so I got the Cutlass moved onto its side, and what I'm gonna do now is, I know that I have to do a patch right here, but I'm gonna go around with tape and I'm gonna mark all of these spots where the metal is rusted that I need to patch. So I'm gonna go through and do all of that right now. That way I kind of know, and then we're gonna work our way from the front all the way to pretty much the trunk, because we're replacing the whole trunk. But I just wanna get all of the metal work pretty much done on the whole front of this. And then all we'll have to do is the trunk and then the outer wheel wells and quarters. Okay, so I actually flipped the rotisserie. This thing is freaking amazing. I'm so happy with this. It's gonna be so much easier to paint now like this, but you can see exactly the spots that I have to fix. So I'm gonna start cutting them out and patching them, and then that will finish up the front of the Cutlass. Okay, well, I got these patches put in right there and there. So we had 2 rust holes there, and then we also had a big rust hole right here. So I got that cut out, got that piece made right there and ready to go in, and then threw some weld through primer on the back of it. So now I'm gonna flip the rotisserie around to the other side, because it's gonna be easier to work when it's like this. So I'll be able to patch that, and then I'll also do some patch work up there. And then that will pretty much finish up the entire front of the Cutlass. Okay, so starting to repair this piece, and I found more rust underneath. It was actually bulging this piece of metal out, so I'm really not surprised that it rusted through all 3 layers. So there's a layer right there, and then a second layer, and then a third layer. So I'm going to do a big cut on the outside to get the outer piece off, and then we are going to cut out the inner rust, repair that, and then weld a new outer piece on. Okay, so I got this piece finally welded in. It took me forever, so there were 3 separate pieces that I had to build for this, and then I spot welded all of this back together the way it was from factory, just because this is a structural piece. So now that that is finished, I am going to address these little patches of rust here, and then I will work my way back and do all of the rust repair in this back corner. Okay, so made some progress. We are almost done. This piece right here is all the way finished up. Looks super good. This piece, on the other hand, turned into a whole fiasco. So both the inner and the outer wheel wells are rotted on this. Now we're going to be replacing the outer one because you can see it's completely gone. So I'm not worried about patching this one, but we do have to patch this inner wheel well. You can see it's kind of hard to get to it from here because I can't really get up in there. And so what I'm going to do is since we're cutting the quarters off anyway, and we're going to have to cut the inner wheel wells off, or the outer wheel wells off anyway, I'm going to wait until these are both cut off to do the patch right here. So I think that'll pretty much be it for this episode on the Cutlass. All of the metalwork is pretty much finished up in the front except for this little corner right here. But this thing is moving along. Super excited to get to the rear and get the trunk work all done. You can see I got my trunk patch right there, and then all of my bracing is up front. And then outer wheel wells are right here. So in the next episode, we're going to get the trunk cut out, patched, get the quarters cut off, patched, and get the outer wheel wells patched as well. And hopefully finish up all of the metal work underneath the body of this Cutlass. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Thanks so much for subscribing and all the comments. If you guys ever have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments and I'll answer them. If you guys ever see me doing something that you're not super sure about, ask me about it. Let me know what you guys are doing. I'm always looking to improve and learn and get these skills. So on that note, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.